Ghanatube so for open some ahudo etia now odi weni action we said the latest, the happenings, the shocks, the happy ones and all that was for Nina Ghanatube so and I was Ebeka 8 personal young wasted time bibiano it was for Dimechi Nanya a war on young Goti and Bra.
Welcome back. In our first story, the government of Ghana has announced the immediate closure of its embassy in Tehran as tensions between Iran and Israel escalate. This decision was made in the interest of safeguarding Ghanaian lives, according to the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Samuel Okudzeto, who disclosed the development in a post on social media today. That's 16th of June. And joining me right now is my colleague, head of the Foreign Affairs Desk, Blessed Soga, giving us details of that update on X. Blessed, what more has the minister been posting about?
Well, Mami, as you can just see there, a very surprising announcement that many were not on the lookout actually going into the day. But it has been confirmed now from the minister that Ghana has taken the decision to close down our consulate or any diplomatic missions we may have in Tehran. If you're quite conversant with what's been happening, of course, in the Middle East now, it's been raining missiles, obviously because of the escalation between Israel and Iran, a reason for which the minister might be taking this decision. But what's surprising to many and those who are watching the developments closely is that the minister appears to be a bit more silent on what might be happening entirely within Israel itself. Now, if you're doing a comparative analysis of what's happening clearly in terms of the numbers, the figures, and likely the number of Ghanaians that we may have in Israel will be quite a substantial number. So many are just surprised as to why the minister is much more heavier on giving out information on what might happen to persons within Tehran. But obviously it might also be driven by intelligence, the fact that if you're looking at the military capabilities of these two countries, then of course if you're making that analysis, you can then draw that conclusion that indeed Israel has quite an upper hand in terms of the military capability. So the casualties may be bigger in Tehran as compared to Israel, possibly a reason why we're seeing what we're seeing from the minister. We've made attempts to reach out to him this morning, at least to get some updates on possibly what the next steps might be. No confirmation yet from the ministry as to what the next steps will be, but as we're taking it from him now in terms of the statement from the minister, it is clear that all Ghanaians will be moving out of Tehran and they would not be using air travel. Clearly, that's what we're getting from that statement, because the indication from the minister is that the attempt is to use our land borders. And so if that's what we're going to be using, possibly, closer countries might be our next targets, such as maybe Iraq and the others, Pakistan, and some of the areas that we may have assets in, or perhaps close allies in, that we may want to move all of our interests and persons who are domiciled in Tehran right now out of Iran. So that's the approach that the minister is giving us a sense of. But for those who are not necessarily aware of what's been happening over the last few days, there is a clear indication that there's escalation of tension between Israel and Tehran. Obviously, based on what we're hearing, Israel says Tehran's decision to build a nuclear ammunition or capacity is a direct threat to their national security, a reason for which, of course, there's been strikes and counter strikes from both parties. In the last few days as well, Israel has attempted to use the diplomatic forum to try and get the International Atomic Agency to try and push more sanctions and to condemn the activities of Tehran. They've not been too successful at that, owing to the division at the Security Council level. But what we do also know is that even in Ghana, our relations with our counterparts, the Israelis, appear to have been witnessing some setbacks, because publicly we're getting to see for the very first time, a diplomat, the US ambassador, expressing his disappointment with Ghana for taking a different position when it matters most, or when it mattered most to Israel. So that's, quite about the first time in a very long while that we're seeing this outburst about how Israel wants to gather more of its allies across the world and to send that message to Tehran that they need to de-escalate now in terms of their, atomic capabilities.
Right.
But we still are waiting to see what it is that the minister will say beyond the statement that we're getting online.
Thank you so much, Blessed, for that update. Well, let's discuss this further. And joining me is international relations analyst Nanaya Miriku on Zoom. We're grateful for your time on our desk. Well, Nanaya, this is what is coming up from the Foreign Affairs Ministry just this morning. What do you make of the recent development in Iran, in Israel?
Good morning to you, and good morning to your viewers. It's rather unfortunate that events are taking the turns that they are taking, and I think that it's in the interest of all other nations, who have their embassies in Tehran and even in Israel, to start thinking of how they are going to protect and safeguard, their citizens in these respective countries. So I think that it's a step in the right direction that if you have Ghana's foreign ministry deciding to close its embassy down in Tehran, and then look at how to get in touch with its citizens and probably get them to other safe states or probably bring them back to Ghana. I think it's a step in the right direction, because it doesn't look like what is happening between Israel and Iran is going to end anytime soon. That was the calculation of Israel and probably US, that attacking Iran was one of the ways of getting them to the negotiating table. They were set to meet this very Sunday in Oman. And I think in the calculation, the calculus of US and Israel, by stepping up this kind of escalation, they're going to force Iran on its knees and bring them to the negotiating table. But it looks as if it's a blowback, and the escalation is going to take days, weeks, if not months. So it's only right that we start doing what we have to do before situation gets to the matter of deterioration. So I think it's a step in the right direction. It's a timely intervention, and I think that, like I said, it's a step in the right direction.
But what's also interesting is the mode of transport of evacuation of Ghanaian citizens in Israel, going by land borders instead of by air. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it just speaks to how difficult it is to navigate those areas, and the insecurity, right, in that area, and how the skies are even becoming volatile, because what is happening, Israel's airspace is probably one of the most volatile right now as we speak. The closest protection Israel is enjoying right now is Jordan. What Jordan is doing is that Jordan is closing up its airspace, so Iran is unable to penetrate it with missiles. But the point is that these areas are very, very volatile. The missiles are flying in left and right, missiles, drones, and so it's only right that you try to find a very safe and secure avenue, transport systems, to get your citizens out, than to try to use the airspace. So I think this is it's a security move. It's a security guided, activity that the government wants to take. I think it's in the interest of our people that we use the transport systems through the routes than to use the skies. As I said, it's a very insecure moment. And any attempt to use the airspace could have, catastrophic, effects.
Well, how does this move signal the realignment of Ghana's diplomatic relations in the Middle East, especially with regard to Israel? I mean, recently they've made some pronouncement on Ghana's posture or stance with regard to their relations with Iran. What do you make of what's happened recently, just opposing that to the relations we have with Israel?
Well, I think that by and large, we need to understand the geopolitics of the day. It's just like the Ukraine, the Russo-Ukraine war. Somebody would think that it's a war between Russia and Ukraine, but ultimately, if you look at the bigger picture, there are experts that are saying that it's a war between the United States and Russia. If you look at what is happening right now between US and Iran, you would understand that ultimately, right, the Donald Trump's administration is making every effort to dissociate itself from the direct attack. But all indication point to the fact that the actions were okayed or was sanctioned or was given the confirmation or affirmation by President Donald Trump. And so what it means is that any country that does not support Israel, is likely to receive a backlash from the United States. And so if you see this back and forth between the U.S. Government and Ghana, and it's Ghana's position on some of these interests or some of these issues, then you understand why they are not very happy. And then more so between Israel and Ghana. But the idea is that if Ghana takes a different position, Ghana is a sovereign state, right? Like you said, during the Cold War, Mahama said, we neither look to the east or to the west, we look forward. So we are trying to disentangle ourselves, but rather be guided by our national interest and what's inured to the benefit of the country. And so if the foreign minister weighs the options and he thinks that we need to take a different position, this is Ghana's national interest. We only have to play it in such a way that we are not seen as being biased in a certain instance, but that does not also mean that we cannot take our own position, because we are sovereign state. What is for our benefit is what we do as a country. But like I'm saying, we either look not to the east or to the west, but we are doing things that inure to the interest of our national interest.
So I mean, on that, to expatiate more, how then do we coordinate foreign policy? Because does it mean we sever ties directly with Israel, outright, or what?
No, I don't think we have to sever ties with Israel outright, because we have taken an entrenched position. That conflicts with the interest of Israel. I think that there are a number of levels that we can cooperate, and everything boils down to dialogue. Israel would want to garner as many allies that it can, because this is also a diplomatic war. It's a diplomatic war between the two countries, and Iran is by and large isolated to a very large extent, because Hamas is not in its very strong position, Hezbollah, and then the Houthis in Yemen. So the idea is that Israel would be very happy, right, to isolate Iran within the diplomatic community, so that Iran is a standalone state.
Right.
And so countries that are gravitating towards Iran are automatically not going to be in the good books of Israel, because what it means is that Iran will have some attention of a sort, some sympathy of a sort.
Right.
But back to your question, I don't think that severes, that means that we have to sever relations with Israel, because there are a number of diplomatic relations or diplomatic endeavor that Ghana also has with Israel. Everything boils down to dialogue. How do we explain? How do we make it known that we cooperate with you on these other levels? But as far as this issue is concerned, this is our position. It doesn't mean that we are securing ties with Israel or with the United States.
All right, and now we're grateful.
It's a very interesting.
It is.
You don't want to be seen. The moment you talk to one side of the coin, you'll be seen as being biased and having a soft spot. If you do the same.
So do you support Ghana's position of abstaining from voting in support of Israel?
Look. Let me tell you this. Do you know one of the reasons why in the latter days of the Obama administration, the U.S. government fell out with the U.S.? The U.S. government fell out with Benjamin Netanyahu. Because for the first time in a very long time, the United States abstained. And we know that there are some scholars who are saying that Israel is not important. It's not just important in U.S. foreign policy. Israel is U.S. foreign policy. There is what you call the Israel lobby, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. We call them the Israel lobby. They pull strings. If you want to become a president in U.S., if you want to have a successful presidency, and you don't control to the demands of this Israel lobby, you're not going to have a very interesting, tenure.
All right.
But Obama was aware of this, and he stayed away and let, resolution that was against the interest of Israel, to be put forward. So if U.S. has done it, it's not any different for Ghana to also abstain from these things. It's our national interest. We think this is what inures to our benefits. And I think that Ghana is right to have done, what it did. There's no point in entangling ourselves in this geopolitics and having the direct consequences. Staying away is one of the safest things that you can do, as a state. That's my opinion.
Thank you so much for your time here on Newsdesk. We're grateful for your time. Nana Yao is an international relations analyst, telling us, giving us more insight into Ghana's relationship with Israel and the happenings in Israel and Iran war. Well, we'll get more updates on this as and when, and we'll come back to it later on. But
I was a woman of my past, and would image the Cotier and send a buy. Now, the comment in the Hukime, our comment section. I'm at prayer. I can Nina Eddie Amo. Aha, Ghana Tube, Spodofo Stony, as usual. I was there for a crown.